What if I told you that the stars are not what we think they are? That they are not simply just distant celestial bodies, but rather remnants of a primordial event? When you look up at the night sky, you aren't just seeing luminous balls of gas, as you do in our own world. What you are instead seeing are remnants of a time long past, where countless spirits fled the mortal plane and entered into the heavens. These stars are not just stars, they are traces of an ancient exodus that still remain in the cosmos. G'day everyone, I'm Jeremy, and today we are going to examine the story of Magnus, who exactly he is, his role in the creation of the Mundus, and what exactly happened to him and the Magna-Ge who followed him. However, before we get started, I'd like to remind you to please consider liking the video, and if you happen to find yourself gazing into the night sky, questioning the origins of your plane of existence, then be sure to subscribe and your queries will be answered, as well as anything else Elder Scrolls related. Magnus is known for being the god of magic, the sun god, the great architect, he who abstained, and the sorcerer king. It is said that during the Dawn era, many of the Et Arda, the original spirits that is, were persuaded into using their power to shape and bring about the creation of a new plane of existence. These spirits who wanted to be involved in the forming of this new plane would later become the Aedra and the Magna-Ge. The remaining Et Arda, the spirits who wanted to remain and not be involved, would later become known as the Daedra. Magnus was one of these spirits who wanted to form the mortal plane, and his role in the creation was likely the most important. He is said to be the architect of Mundus, as it was he who created the schematics and the very diagrams that were needed to form it. Lord Khan was the spirit responsible for initiating and convincing the spirits into forming this new plane. At first they were very eager in carrying out this plan. However, as the plane began to form, it soon became clear to the spirits that they were losing their power, and that for them to complete the creation of the plane, they would have to sacrifice much of it, if not all. With this in mind, it became clear to them that they'd been tricked by Lord Khan, and as their aspects began to die off, many of the Et Arda would vanish entirely. And as you could expect, there would be some who would rather keep what power they have left than to complete their project. And so, with the outcome of such a construction made clear, Magnus would be the first of the Et Arda to flee. He would flee to Aetherius shortly before Mundus had been created, and in the process of escaping, he tore a great hole in the sky. A hole which glimpsed into Aetherius, and its light would seep across the world. This hole was the sun, and with Magnus's departure, many other Et Arda would follow him, fleeing alongside into Aetherius, each themselves tearing smaller holes into the sky. These would come to be the stars, and the spirits who followed him were named the Magna-Ge. Those who chose to stay would later become the Elnafae. They were the predecessors of the races of Nirn, and the few who were still able to retain their power even after creation would become the Aedra, which is a name meaning our ancestors. Those who did not participate in creation at all would come to be known as the Daedra, not our ancestors. Now you may have questions with this new idea, like how do plants and other organisms survive with this alternative sun, or how would getting sunburnt work? Well, in Elder Scrolls, sunburn is referred to as ethereal exposure, and the mechanisms of sunlight in the environment remain very similar to that of our own real world. The sun effectively acts in every way the same as it does in the real world, except of course we also have the knowledge that it's a huge hole gaping into the heavens. The only real difference is that it releases magicka into the Mundus and a unique form of light magic. Although he has not been seen for a millennia, Magnus still has influences on Tamriel and Nirn. His most impactful of these influences is through the great hole in the sky, the sun, which is said to be the main source of light and magicka within the world, with a constant stream of it flowing from Aetherius. We all know how important magicka is in the Elder Scrolls series and how often it's used, while light on the other hand, besides the obvious uses like in farming for example, was a key component in the ancient Aelid civilization. It was a key part of their beliefs and their way of life. The Aelids, if you're unsure, were the ancient elves of Cyrodiil. They are the ones responsible for all the ancient ruins you can find in Oblivion, and not only that, but even the White Gold Tower itself, set in the center of the Imperial city. Magnus was a keystone in their religion, worshipping him as the god of sight, light, and insight. These elves believed that Nirn was composed of 4 basic elements, that being earth, water, air, and most importantly of all, instead of fire, light. The most sublime form of this light was starlight, as the stars are a direct link between Mundus and Aetherius. They harnessed this starlight, creating the Aelid wells that you can find around Cyrodiil, and also the Welkin stones and the Vala stones that can store light within. It is also believed by some in the land of Tamriel that Magnus is capable of inhabiting the bodies of powerful mages and lending them some of his power. This could have possibly been the case with Zurin Arctus, the Underking, who is known to be associated with Magnus. Although Magnus is known to be an Aedra, he is still not worshipped within the Imperial Pantheon, as despite being so significant in the creation of Mundus and even giving much of his power, he did not give all of it. The Imperials believe that his gift of magic is an unreliable contribution, as it does the world just as much ill as it does good. Here you can understand why there would be so many groups who worship him, as well as many who also reject him. Those who worship him value what he has given to them, and choose to overlook or maybe just simply accept his departure from creation. In contrast, groups who reject him, while they may still appreciate his contributions, his failure to commit to creation and complete his vision has led to many seeing him as a disappointment or a failure who is not worthy to be labelled a divine. Now, despite his absence from the history of Tamriel, he actually does possess a few artifacts on Nirn, similar to that of the Aedra and the Daedra. He supposedly created and used the Staff of Magnus. The staff served Magnus as a metaphysical battery, however was left behind when he fled the mortal realm. It is believed to hold immense power, and it's said that in time, any who use the staff will eventually be abandoned by it before the wielder is able to become too powerful, thus keeping the mystical balances in check. Some believe it was a gift, others say it was stolen, and some believe it to be a test. His other artifact, which you would be very familiar with if you've played the College of Winterhold quest in Skyrim, is the Eye of Magnus. This artifact, along with the staff, is the focal point of the quest. It's believed to possess a huge amount of magical power. However, what exactly it is and its uses are not known. The staff can be used in combination with the eye to manipulate this power and potentially use it. It may possibly even have the power to alter the world itself, as we hear this from Arncano as he attempts to use it.
The power to unmake the world at my fingertips, and you think you can do anything about it?
Now, whether or not this is literally Magnus's eye or simply just a name for it is unknown. However, Khajiit beliefs may provide some insight into this. Magnus, or Magrus to the Khajiit, is known as the cat's eye or the third eye of Azura. One of their ancient stories tells of when Magrus fled from Boethra and Lorkhaj. He could only see out of one eye and fell into the moon's shadow. Whilst there, Azura judged him as being too full of fear to be able to rule a sphere, and she tore out his other eye. Magrus left to the heavens, blinded, and Azura made of his eye a stone to reflect the Valiant's gate, which is known as the Aether Prism. Now, the eye taken by Azura is not the artifact that I refer to, as the Aether Prism is in reference to the sun. However, the beginning of the story mentions him only being able to see out of one eye. It does not specifically say what happened to his first eye, whether this eye is simply closed or was removed, but it's something that I believe should be taken into account when discussing this artifact. Now that we have a good understanding of Magnus, I'd like to discuss the Magna-Ge, the Star Orphans who followed him into Aetherius. The Aelids recognized the Magna-Ge as his offspring, which he created from the Aether, and several of them are known to the elves as the 9 coruscations. There are very few of the Magna-Ge who have actually been named. The most well known of them is Namoli, the Blue Star. She is associated with untime events, those being dragon breaks, and it's said that she was visible in the sky during one of them. Merid Nunda was another well-known spirit of the Magna-Ge, who you may know as Meridia, the Daedric Prince of Light. She is believed to have consorted with the Daedra, and eventually become one herself. In essence, she is a fallen angel, a fallen Magna-Ge. Her star has now faded from the sky. There are 7 other Magna-Ge who have been named, the oldest of them all being the Prime Archon, and together they form the 9 coruscations. If you've ever played Oblivion, you would certainly recognize the name Mankar Cameron. He has also credited the Magna-Ge with the creation of a Daedric prince, Mehrunes Dagon, in the bowels of Lig, the adjacent plane. Arguably, he is a reliable source on this matter, as he is one of the few mortals to have actually interacted with Mehrunes Dagon, and likely possesses the most comprehensive understanding of him to date. To the Magna-Ge, Mundus was a place of pain and suffering, and they had looked to Dagon to cure them of these mortal perils, hoping he would purge the impurities of this existence, so that it could emerge anew, for he was the prince of ambition and revolution. Whether or not Dagon's ambitions align with these hopes that they had for him is unknown. However, you can assume that he was very close in achieving these goals during the events that transpired in the Third Era, the Oblivion Crisis. As little as we know of Magnus and the Magna-Ge, as well as his artifacts which are just as much a mystery as he is, we can only wonder what else will be revealed with the release of Elder Scrolls 6 in hopefully the next few years. I personally would like to find out more about the Eye of Magnus, especially its untapped and unspoiled potential. Now, before I too flee to Aetherius, I will leave you with this final point to remember. He is the great architect. He is the one who abstained. He is the observer. He is Magnus. And he was the visionary who gave shape to the Mundus. He who sketched the diagrams to form it. Lorkhan may have conceived the idea of the Mundus, though it was Magnus who truly brought it form and to fruition. Well guys, that's it for today. Thanks so much for all the support you've been giving me. I really appreciate it, and I'll do my best to put more Elder Scrolls content out on the channel, more frequently and more consistently. Be sure to like the video, it really does mean a lot to me, and subscribe to indulge in this fascinating world with me in the future.